Hello my friends, I am OmnusI here in my lair for another RPGaDay video. Today is the 29th of August. The 29th word is ride. So, ride. Kind of a tricky one. Not a very fortunate word, unfortunately. Because there's a few meanings to ride, and none of them particularly speak to what I'm talking about. Ride as in to get on something and go, or ride as in a thing or creature that you get on to go. So you can ride a horse, or a horse can be your ride. Both work. But in this case, I'd like to talk a little bit about ride as an expression of the journey and how it is that a person gets from point A to point B. Because the method of that journey, the actual experience of the ride, can often be the difference between a good experience and a bad experience, depending on how it all flows together and what challenges are in the way of you enjoying the ride. So first of all, now of course we're being metaphorical here, the ride in this case is a gaming experience. It is the entirety of what you experience and enjoy in a game. And in this case, the particular ride we're going to talk about, of course, is, well, what I hope for with my game. With DicePhile, as far as the ride goes, I hope that when it's played, for players it feels like an experience where they're not hedged in by numbers and statistics. Even though there's dice for lots of things, and there's lots of statistical bonuses that you can go for, they're not hard numbers, they're just dice. And while, of course, you tactically, that part of your mind that thinks tactically, want to try to get as many dice as possible to roll to help your chances and to avert disaster, I really, want this game to be a little bit more free-form and open so that you don't feel like, I can't do this. I don't have the right skill for this. Even if you're rolling a four-sided die for something, unless the thing you're trying to do is really nearly impossible, a circumstance die here, using a choice piece of gear, can give you a reasonable chance of even a decent roll, a 4 or a 5 result. And for most tasks, that's going to be enough. It's a very difficult task that can't be completed with, say, a 5. And if you roll a 4 on a 4-sided die, that becomes a 5. So, if it comes to, climbing a wall, unless that wall is made of glass or oiled or something like that, a 5 is generally going to be enough to make progress climbing up a wall. So if you're not particularly skilled in it, even an unskilled person has a chance of doing it. Of course, your chance of failure and possibly catastrophic failure exists, which is why getting gear to help you out. Using a rope, for instance, when climbing a wall, is an advantage that gives you a die that helps you out and makes it less likely that you're going to have a disastrous fall. So, as far as the ride goes, there are, of course, elements that can cause problems. Number one, the conductor of the ride, the game master. If the game master isn't comfortable feeling that they can adjudicate any situation that comes up, or have a mechanic in place to solve almost anything that could come up, that can be a bit rocky. They may have to do something that breaks everybody else's belief that the world behaves realistically. You want to come up here? Come on. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You can say hello to my kitty Magic, my little familiar, who enjoys coming up with us every now and again. Say hi, Magic. Hi. But if the game master doesn't feel like they know how to play the game, how to run the game, how to resolve a situation, the ride can get really bumpy really quickly. And that's unfortunate. In DicePhile, however, the primary thing a game master has to do is just pick a number and then choose what the player is going to try to do, and occasionally encourage the player to choose the skill or ability they're going to try to use, which will determine the exact angle that they're approaching the problem. Hi. Yeah, you're a good girl, aren't you? Yes, you are. So with that, the game master is freed up to merely have to be worried about picking a number and occasionally helping out the players by giving them circumstance dice when they come up with a clever idea or they use something to their advantage. Maybe it's handing out spurious gear dice if they think of using something in the environment cleverly. Maybe it's just giving them a bonus die because their circumstance is good, and maybe it's rewarding them for something rather funny by giving them a die because the cosmos smiles on a person who makes the game fun for everybody. They're all valid, and that'll be in the Game Master's suggestions too. Then after that, well, the mechanics are relatively straightforward. Another thing that's not a lot of fun, however, is dealing with a lot of abstractions that kind of throw... What's wrong? What's wrong? You want to be a lap kitty? Okay, you can be a lap kitty. That can throw the game off for a particular player. In my case, say goodbye to magic, everybody. Bye, magic. In the case of DicePhile, because a die represents everything that could influence or impact a particular event, each thing is just an abstraction. If it's not very influential, it'll be represented by a low-value die, probably a 4-sided die. If it's something that has a potential for a major impact, for example, if you have a ladder of the correct height when you need to climb, a ladder is much easier to climb than freescaling a wall, so that would give you a large value. And you know, realistically, if a person approaches a ladder to climb, and they do so in a particularly responsible way, for instance, they inspect the ladder to make sure that it's stable, they make sure that it's grounded properly, it's at a fair incline so that they don't have to overreach, and they go slowly and carefully, that deserves a bonus die. But occasionally, even a responsible person might slip. There is the possibility of failure even in the most idyllic of circumstances. So in those cases, yeah, you can represent all that by dice. Or choose not to. If you decide there's so many things going for that person that doesn't make sense in your story that a person would fall from this particular venture, if they have a ladder, they're in no hurry, they can make sure they climb, then you may not even need to roll. And those are all things that the Game Master has full power over. The Story Weaver can choose what rolls are necessary and which ones aren't, and therefore can tell exactly the story they want, using the filter and the degree of fineness that they want in their story. And if they decide down the road they want to change that, they've gone with a very rough filter with very broad abilities and skills, and they decide they want to change it, it's not complicated. It's not terribly difficult in this game. So it's just when you change the filter out, you have so many dice to break down into the component skills that made up that initial ability or skill. So, for instance, if you are going to take a lot of the benefits out of, say, muscle, and instead you want to break those down into athletic abilities, and those are skills that you can actually train in, then when you do that, your core muscle skill might decline a bit, but you would have extra dice to throw into all of these extra skills to represent the fact that you are good at those things. It all depends on, what you end up choosing to do with the system. And in general, I think it's relatively a strength. Now, another thing is that the game doesn't require math. That's, I think, a pretty good strength. Games that highly rely on math and being able to do notations can slow games down, and some people just don't like to do math when they're entertaining themselves, which I thought was kind of a weakness of 3rd edition. Required a bunch of math. Not difficult math, often. Simple addition, and then when you start having iterative attacks, just subtracting 5 from numbers, it's not terribly difficult. but it's something that some people choose not to do. And quite honestly, when I played higher level 3rd edition games, I kind of checked out, because even though I can handle the math, I have a decent mind, and I can do math, it wasn't what I wanted to do when I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. That was always the strength of having a matrix, or something like a THACO, which is a simple mathematical expression. It's not repeated iterative or multiplying or adding up a number of different abilities to a number. So yeah, with DicePhile, it's simple. You're just looking for the highest number most of the time. And then if you see any of your other dice have a maximum value, then you add 1 to that. That's it. Relatively straightforward. And I think that smooths out the ride quite a bit if your players don't really have to think. Even in the simplest expression of my game, the Traveling Hat Club, everything is resolved with coins that are tossed, and you're just checking for number of heads. That is a little bit of math, but something that even a young child should be able to do. Therefore, you don't have that kind of complication of worrying about what you're going to do in that context. I just want to enjoy myself. I want to tell my story. I just want to tell you what my character wants to do, and then you tell me how it goes after we look at whatever dice rolls or coins are sorted out. And I think I'm not alone in feeling that that's a strength, judging from what I've seen from the evolution of a lot of games and a lot of rules, like games that incorporate next to no mechanical math. I think it could do very well if people give it a chance. And it's conscious design. I think I've interpreted pretty well the direction that people have gone with the hobby, from really arcane and crunchy rules to being happy with just kind of simulating and being able to get into the story and speed through decisions. And some of it is style, and some of it is a matter of mechanics. Either way, it all changes how your ride experience is. So, in this case, if you really, really, really love strictly detailed, arcane, crunchy rules, my game may not be the best for you, even though you can adjust the filter and increase the complexity of the game. I'm never going to tell you that my game is going to have, exact ranges for various modern weaponry or anything like that. It's always going to have a relatively light basis on, rules and things. But it can be used to simulate a lot of factors that other games choose to gloss over. So, yeah, there's stuff like that. So anyhow, that is something I've thought about, and it's something I think that, again, game designers ought to think about, is how their game is going to be experienced and what kind of things are in the way of people really enjoying what you're doing and where they're going on your game. And if you don't have some sort of a concept on that, well, you're just kind of hoping that it catches fire. I think that most of the cleverest games that I've seen knew that they were clever and exploited that by highlighting their strengths, highlighting what makes their game special. And, again, even though I'm going with my game into a crowded room full of games that try to be universal, I think my game holds pretty well compared to a lot of them. I don't want the kind of detail that you can get from GURPS, and it'll be a long time before my game has the kind of breadth and support that something like a Savage Worlds has. And likewise, it's a bit more involved, but gives you a lot more control than something like Powered by the Apocalypse. I think giving you more player choice and control over your narrative. But all in all, I just hope it's a game people have fun with. And I hope that people give it a chance and get to try it and have fun with it. So these are things that I think about, and this is why I chose to talk about it today, for the word ride. So, hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you very much for joining me. I am OmnusI, and this has been another RPGaDay adventure here in my lair. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed it and you haven't yet done so, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I talk about lots of things, Most notably, of course, I'm all in on RPGaDay, but I also have lots of other videos talking about other role-playing games and other aspects of the gaming community and mechanics and game concepts and stuff. So if you enjoy that kind of thing and I don't irritate you, please check me out. I'd appreciate that. And what I even appreciate more than any of that, though, is if you like the video, that's fine. But if you have a problem with anything I said, if I made you mad about something, or you thought I forgot something and you wanted elaborated on, leave me a comment. Comments mean the world to me. And much as I appreciate the likes and the support, and I appreciate subscribers, I really do. I love to talk to people, and I love to discuss things about gaming and my videos, honestly. That's how I get better, and again, really what I started doing this all for, I want to talk to the gaming community, I want to talk to people. So if you see this video and you're like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about this, if you were in the room with me, I could have talked about this, hey, comment section is below, I do check them all the time, so let me know. Until next time, I am OmnusI, thank you for joining me, and I will hopefully see you tomorrow when I do another RPGaDay video. Until that time, thank you and farewell.